Welcome to Peace Talks. I've been a little under the weather, so you haven't seen a live recording of Peace Talks in the last few days, but feeling better now. Definitely ready to jump into this topic. I think it's very important to understand this about peace. It's one running across the bottom here. Peace can't be silenced. It's going to take 28 minutes, 29 minutes, and um, invite you all to share this broadcast with people on your platforms. If you're watching it 2 days after it airs, share it again. Really believe we need to uh, center ourselves in understanding peace and understanding that we should be peacemakers. But more and more, as I'm seeing what I believe are attempts on social media to silence people from talking about, in particular, what's happening with Palestinians and how they're being bombed and violated day in and day out by Israel, attempts to silence peace. But peace can't be silenced. And so, excuse me, I just want to share, probably in some instances, coughing my way through my ideation around that. I want to be abundantly clear um, that I am studying, have studied, continue to study the history of what has happened in this region from um, long ago until now. I am a student of the Old Testament, what's called in the Jewish faith religion, the Torah. I'm a student of the Talmud. I am a student of world religions, and I do understand the religious factors that are connected as much as I can understand them, not being Jewish or Muslim. I don't want to be arrogant in sharing that. As much as I can understand them, those factors, and just wanted to a bit dive into what's happening now with discourse. This notion that if you mention your care for Israeli or Jewish people or there are people who live in Israel who aren't Jewish, right? I just want to be sure we know these things. Um, it is considered by many a Jewish state, but there are people who live there, some of them who were attacked on October 7th who are not Jewish, would not classify themselves as such. But if you say you care about them, you want hostages returned, then people respond on your post, free Palestine. And if you say you want Palestinian people to no longer be bombed by Israel, then people respond with, uh, under other people's posts, which is very just peculiar to me because people can post different sentiments. Often I'm finding that people come on social media just to respond to what other people post. They don't have legitimate, independent thoughts. They're there to track what other people are saying and then respond and to provoke commentary and to try to draw attention to what they've shared under somebody else's post. It's an intriguing thing. Uh, but I'm also seeing legitimately, I believe, attempts to silence people from simply saying they don't want more human beings to be blown up on the Gaza Strip. And it's hard to navigate that sometimes because there's been such a history between Israel and Palestine, between Muslims and Jews, and there is discontent, discord, violence. Before October 7th, Palestinian people being put out of their homes in the West Bank by Israeli forces and others than Israeli forces. There have been Nakbas uh, for Jewish people. They've experienced genocide in European nations, discrimination. um, across the globe. Muslim people have experienced discrimination, violence after 9/11, a great increase in biases, and this idea that because some people from a group were violent and harmful, all people, same thing now with Palestinians and Hamas. This notion I see sometimes on social media and in conversation that Palestinian people somehow are connected to Hamas and have to pay for what Hamas has done. This notion that people elected Hamas, but most of the people who are dying now, children, didn't do that. Um, and even if they had, we in this nation elect people who do harmful things in other nations. Does that then mean that we should okay bombing of people? And you may be sitting there thinking nobody in our government has ever done anything as harmful as what happened at the music festival on and in our kibbutz. Hope I'm saying that correctly. My Jewish neighbors, Israeli neighbors, on October 7th. And I encourage you to study the history of violence perpetuated by the United States. Either way, what I know for sure is there's a path to peace that we can get to. True peace, as I've been sharing, that's not just about we don't have tension, but that includes justice and defining justice the Kingian way, love correcting everything that stands against love. I believe we can get there if we start to question some things, dig into some things, have some honest conversations, take an honest, thorough look at history, and do the work of true, authentic, excuse me, authentic reconciliation. You can tell I must think this conversation or this moment is very important uh, to push through this, to say peace can't be silenced. I believe that. The more, it gets uncomfortable because you're like, I just don't know what to say. I have Jewish friends, I have Palestinian friends, and then I'm looking at people carrying their loved ones out of rubble. And then I'm looking at other folks saying, when I simply say, or retweet something that says ceasefire, people respond, release the hostages. Well, of course, I want the hostages released. I just don't believe these thousands of people should be paying for their being hostages. And I'm trying to figure out why that's just not simple. And people are trying to give me the ins and outs of war. Well, I'm a practitioner and student and senior trainer in nonviolence. I believe we can get to a place of humanity where we understand that retaliation won't get us to where we need to be, and we refuse to be a part of our collective annihilation. I believe that's possible. Some folks don't believe that it could be that war doesn't exist, and they'll give me examples like the liberation of people from concentration camps. And of course, I believe that forces should have been used to liberate people from concentration camps. My question is, how do we get to the place where we don't create more concentration camps? How do we get to the place where we utilize peaceful means to create a society where the type of bigotry, the hate, the vitriol, the prejudice, the anti-Semitism, the violence, the biases against disabled people, Romani people, people from all kinds of backgrounds who died in the Holocaust, predominantly Jewish people, uh, according to most reports. And how do we get to a place where people don't even question whether or not the Holocaust happened? That's what we see a lot. The Holocaust isn't real. And I'm seeing right now people telling me that the photos I'm seeing, the reports I'm seeing, the videos of people crying for their loved ones in Gaza are not real. So I think we're facing the question, as we often do, how do we not repeat history? You know, how can I be a person who says, I don't want anybody to say the Holocaust didn't happen, and I don't want anybody to say what Palestinian people are suffering now is not real or legitimate? And again, I must think this is critical to talk about peace can't be silenced, to work through this cough and this cold. I do think it's important that people around the globe think about how we can't allow peace to be silenced. Even when people make us feel as though if we speak out against an atrocity, we're somehow harming another group. And I can tell you honestly, if anybody out there knows me, they'll attest to this. I care about people. And when I think about all of this that has happened, I'm praying for the family members of those who were taken hostage. But I don't want to hear if I start talking about what happened to Palestinian people 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Oh, we don't want to talk about that. We can't live there. We can't live in this place where we deny the inhumanity that has happened to other people, even if our people group perpetuated it. I can't look at something that a Black person may have done or a group of Black people did and say, I don't want to hear about it, just because I think we need to be focused on something else. Even when people bring up to me this idea of, which is often raised when we talk about racism, that there are crimes committed by other Black people against Black people, I think I'm not going to dismiss that. Now, I'm going to tell people the truth about it, where that notion comes from, if it's true in some cases, because, of course, there are white people who commit crimes against white people. What's happened in ghettos and housing projects and where those housing projects came from. But we track history in a lot of situations where there's unrest and instability and violence. What we'll often find is if we dig enough into the truth, we'll discover the pathway to peace. But it's so hard to get us to do that. Why? Because people are trying to silence peace. People are trying to make peace be quiet. Calls for peace are being called calls to anti-Semitism. There are people who are legitimately protesting, many of them, for there just to be an end to the bombs being dropped on Palestinian people by Israel, and they're being called anti-Semitic. Now, there are some people who are out there doing what they're calling protest, but they are practicing anti-Semitism. Standing on the corner saying Jewish people need to be exterminated is not protest. That is hate speech on the corner. But if we don't even have the conversation to differentiate, and we just start to engage in a way where we become silencers of people who are simply saying, stop bombing other human beings as retaliation, we believe we can discover another way. And I have been stricken, just horrified by people who are basically telling me we don't even need to try to find another way, who are nonchalant about thousands of people being bombed, who seem to believe that the best response to 1,400 people dying and 200 being taken hostage is to multiply death and to multiply hostages. That may be, in a tribal sense, a good thing, something that people are okay with. But when you're concerned about humanity and our continuation and our ability to live together, it is not the path forward, to say the least. To say the least. In case you haven't noticed, I do take care of my words. I don't want to incite violence. So when people say, "Oh, you're being passive," "Oh, you're being too gentle," no, I'm concerned about every day speaking something, typing something that will cause somebody to think it's okay to hate or okay to harm another group of people. Very careful. And I'm okay with that. Call me what you want to. Call me a side of on the side of Israeli people, Jewish people, because I don't want to provoke anti-Semitism. Call me on the side of Muslim and Palestinian people because I don't want to provoke Islamophobia. Whatever. Uh, say I love white people because I don't want to provoke violence against white people. I don't. Uh, say I love black people because I don't want to say things that cause more harm to black people. That's true. Any group. I just try to take care, and I think we all should. Not, I'm gonna say what I want to say, regardless of what happens. I don't think that's true. What's happening now is because there's been so much fear and hate and discord, so much harm over the years. People fearful of more Nakbas, living now in Nakbas, living in violence on Gaza Strip. People concerned about being exterminated. And we are collectively, I don't believe, not doing anything to help either Palestinian or Israeli people feel like this can't happen to them again. Because when hate festers, it just festers. But if we work consistently and persistently to ensure that peace is not silenced, because it can't be, and then we realize this, peace provokes. So I talk about not provoking to violence. I believe peace provokes us to our higher selves. When I'm a vessel for peace, then people come around, or I might be around people and they say, oh, she communicates differently on social media. She communicates differently. She protests differently. No, she's out there trying to find a way to do it that does not provoke violence against other people. And there are people out there doing that. They're just not getting attention. Or there are people among those groups of folks doing that who are taking attention away from folks who are just out there saying, as Palestinian people, stop bombing Gaza. It's weird, right? The most basic thing there should be to say, I mourn with you, my Israeli, my Jewish neighbors, but I cannot allow my mourning to disintegrate into me believing it's okay for Palestinian people to be bombed. I mourn with you, my Palestinian neighbors, for what happened prior to October 7th. I do. I've been reading history. I've been hearing accounts from Palestinian people. I hear that you were being harmed and hurt and oppressed prior to that date. I cannot allow my mourning to make it okay to me for Hamas to go into Israel and attack and harm Israeli people. People in Israel who had nothing to do, most of them, with what's happening in Gaza and in the West Bank. And so our only course of action could be to not allow peace to be silenced, to make peace something that provokes us to higher thinking and causes us to sit down together to say, how do we make it so that all the violence we're seeing now does not happen again? And I'm concerned when people aren't willing to do that, because it's a sign to me that we've so gone down this spiral that when people start to speak peace, folks want them to shut up. When people start to protest for peace now, people want them to be quiet. True peace, that is, that says we want justice. We want for the things that preceded what we're seeing now not to happen again. We want not only hostages returned, and they're not afraid to say that. They're not afraid to say that. So what's happening now is people try to make you fearful of even saying you want hostages released. Like, how is that real? How will people try to make you fearful and push you and bully you into not saying that you want Palestinians to not be bombed? What world are we in? How are we living that people get irate when you say stop bombing children? Really. This attempt to silence peace. Peace won't shut up, though. Peace, true peace, it's not this fake thing that's just going to let violence keep carrying on and carrying on until we're all out of here. Peace is going to keep standing and keep standing and keep talking in a way that it's not seeking to provoke wrath or to provoke people to hate other people. Peace is going to talk in a way that says, we can live together here. We can work through this. This won't bring these folks back. It's hard, you know. No, I think about my ancestors, and in my life, I've experienced bouts of rage, and I've led trainings in a way that were just bent for retaliation, and I've sought to harm people out of wrath for what happened. For my ancestors who, a lot of people don't mention genocide when it comes to the transatlantic slave trade, but my ancestors who are buried in the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, I think about the loss of people, not talent, not gifts first, but just people, human beings gone, you know, possibility. And I've been enraged, and I've had to come back to realize that that rage, not properly channeled into making a better world and eradicating racism and of confronting white supremacy in ways that don't damage my soul, were harmful to me. And I think now about the damaged souls that I'm witnessing, who instead of saying, I don't want to compare, and say when somebody says Palestinian children are dying, well, Jewish children died on October 7th too. Does that make Palestinian children dying okay? What do we do? You know, I think one of the answers is to determine we're going to be vessels of peace. And I know if you're thinking, oh, that's too much to call on us to do that. People do it. People have done it. It's the only way we're going to survive. Because at the rate we're cultivating hate across the world, if we continue on this path, we are ushering in our non-existence. And as I shared a few episodes ago of Peace Talks, there are some people who are okay with that. They're into Armageddon. Got big signs behind them when they speak, and they talk all the time about the end times. And yeah. What about peace? What about love? What about something we can determine will provoke us to never be here again? Is it possible? I believe it's possible. Peace as a noisemaker. Sometimes people think peace is quiet. But I'm doing some things now, preparing to do some things to make a whole lot of noise. Because I think we can't be fearful. Or we can be fearful, but not allow ourselves to be snared by fear. Because fear is a thing, it's real. But here's our question. Excuse me. Will we allow fear to silence us? To make us acquiesce to war, to militarism? Or will we insist, let's find a way to ensure that violence doesn't continue without perpetuating violence against Palestinians in Gaza? We can do that. We can ensure that hate against Israeli people, Jewish people, stops without perpetuating hate against Muslim people, Palestinian people, brown people. Peace is a noisemaker. It is. Peace is welling up in me, causing me to say, why are some people just so fundamentally nonchalant about these brown folks in Gaza? being bombed, burying their loved ones at an alarming rate, not even having a chance, some of them, to bury them. Why is that okay to some? And when I say it's okay, some people will raise up and say it's not okay with me. I'm just saying. I'm like, no. There doesn't seem to be any mourning in how many people are talking about what's happening to Palestinians. And I believe that I can mourn for Palestinians and for Israeli people. I just believe that. And I believe that I can call for a ceasefire and call for humanitarian aid and understand that hostages need to be released. And again, anybody that will try to silence that train of thought, I will have to ask why. What's happened in us? What's happened in us? It's what I want you to examine today. Peace can't be silenced. It won't. It's going to raise up. If you have anything in you for making peace, for correcting those things that stand against love, I just pray that it wells up in you like never before. If there's a petition you're supposed to sign, a congressman you're supposed to call, a senator you're supposed to reach out to, something you're supposed to be a part of that seeks to defeat injustice but not people, that's not out to be destructive. I believe to get to peace, we'll have to have peaceful means. That's not passive. That doesn't lack aggression. That just means I don't believe I can reach a place of peace by being harmful. That's all. It's like, it's science, actually. Spirit and science. You know. Consider ways you have allowed true peace to be silenced. Consider ways you have allowed. I'm going to consider ways I have allowed and repent for them. True peace to be silenced, because the one who I follow in a sermon on the side of a mountain, not in a church, not in a big cathedral with a 200 voice choir, not surrounded by stuff, sat on the side of a mountain and gave these blessings, these proclamations. And one of the things he said is, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called. For they shall be called the children of God. I'm going to go with that blessing. And I'm not going to allow the peace that I know needs to be working in me and through me to be silenced. Otherwise, it's not peace. I believe the divine is the Prince of Peace. And that through us, with us, peace can show up. And so I want you to consider today the ways you have allowed true peace to be silenced. Because it can't be. Can't be. So you have to ask, one, is it true peace? Or was it a mockery? Thank you for bearing with me through this cold. Let's pray for our world house. Let's pray for peace. But let's be more than prayers for peace. Let's be peacemakers, peace doers, peace workers, peace walkers. Peace walkers. We can do that. Hope to see you, engage you, see you, virtually. Know you're out there tomorrow. This is Peace Talks.